I wanted to marry you. I wanted to be with you. I was deeply in love with you. It was never something dirty or something disgusting. But most people are disgusted by what Chad Wilhoff did. That's Wilhoff on the phone with his victim, nearly 2 decades after he sexually abused her. The girl was 12 years old. Wilhoff was 23. The victim had the courage as an adult to go to police. At their request, she recorded this call. It should have never happened. I was an adult. It should never happen. The state later used the call as evidence against Wilhoff in his trial. I'm going to pay for my sins. And he is. Let's go back to 2003.
Say anything. He had brought his Bible with him, and he proceeded to open up the Bible. He started reciting scriptures out of Matthew 18.
Verses about bringing accusations to the church first and obeying your elders.
So if I would have known the term gaslighting at the time, I would have thought, I'm being gaslighted.
Trammell eventually left the church.
I regret to this day that I did not go to the police. I'll always regret that I didn't try to do something else.
The victim's family remained in the church for several years, unaware of the abuse. Then in 2020, the victim filed a police report, writing details like, when I was 12 years old, he kissed me for the first time. He would play a game with me where he would pass an ice cube back and forth to me with his mouth. The first time we had sex was age 14.
She knew the damage it was going to cause. She knew the lives that were going to be just ripped apart, but it needed to be done. And I think it took a lot of courage.
It's an apocalypse. The president of Southern Baptist told members to prepare for what he calls deliberate actions to address these failures. Here's NBC's Ann Thompson.
This is the reckoning Hannah Kate Williams wanted when she and others asked the Southern Baptist Convention for a third-party investigation of sexual abuse.
Do you feel vindicated by the report?
In a lot of ways, yes.
She is suing the SBC for failing to take action against her father, who she says sexually abused her starting at age 8 as he studied to become a pastor.
I was met with, well, you're an enemy of God. It was threats, harassments. I had to move from my home.
The lengthy report details how survivors like Williams encountered resistance, stonewalling, and even outright hostility from some in SBC leadership starting in 2000. One leader claiming it is a satanic scheme to completely distract us from evangelism. Yet investigators found one staffer compiled a secret list of accused abusers with hundreds of names.
What does this do to the reputation of Southern Baptist?
Cross Church right behind me here. That's where Pastor Ronnie Floyd used to work as lead pastor, and his name is mentioned throughout this report. The report was created by an independent firm called Guidepost Solutions and is nearly 400 pages long. It says people who were sexually abused by clergy reported the incidents to the Southern Baptist Convention's executive committee. Floyd once served as president and CEO of that committee. The report says the committee met those survivors with resistance and hostility, typically due to concerns over legal liability. It claims that for nearly 2 decades, the committee heard about reports of child molesters and other abusers who were in the pulpit or working as church staff. The report says Floyd and others opposed a task force to investigate the committee's response, and that Floyd even tried to prevent an investigation from happening. Last year, delegates at the Southern Baptist Convention's national gathering demanded that the committee should not be allowed to investigate itself. Floyd resigned from the committee after the decision was made. We have reached out to
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is being sued for $9.5 million, with an Oregon woman claiming the LDS Church was required to keep her husband's confession-like communications about child sexual abuse confidential. The plaintiff's husband confessed to church leaders that he'd had inappropriate sexual contact with his minor daughter. He pleaded guilty to sexual abuse after a 2017 arrest and was given a 15-year sentence, according to the Associated Press. Time is not identifying them so as not to identify their daughter, a victim of sexual abuse. The suit claims the church violated its own doctrine of confidentiality for contacting the authorities. The plaintiff's lawyer, William Brandt, telling Time via email, quote, "This has nothing to do with victims of abuse. This case is different because it deals with the confidentiality of a church member making confidential statements to a clergyman which are privileged. Oregon is one of around 28 states that count clergy members as mandatory reporters when it comes to suspected child abuse or neglect. But the suit suggests that
my mouth fixed up because I got a lot to say.
No offense to the pastors on board with me, but the first thing you have to do is when your pastor messed up, you got to love them enough to sit them down. It's always been very interesting to me as somebody who does American religion to look at white evangelicals, and the moment that a white evangelical messes up, they throw them out the door. Or they got to go sit down somewhere and go to a camp or go to reconditioning or something. Or you going to Betty Ford and you going to the sex clinic or something else. In a black church, if a pastor messes up and it's just heterosexual, hallelujah. We gonna keep, it might be a bad Sunday where somebody sweating up there for a couple of hours or something and somebody gets called out. But that person can stay in the pulpit. There is no retribution for bad behavior. It's gotta stop. Scandals have been and how much they are having to pay off to all these people who are suing. There's a big suit today in Dallas that just came up. There's a lot of stuff going on, people. See, it ain't one church. It's a lot of them. And a lot of these churches are having
sexually abused by her stepfather during her childhood and teenage years.
Sean Tillis is the attorney representing Gianna Lee, now 37 years old. In this lawsuit against her stepfather and former pastor John Bernard Black Sr., her mother, the church, and its leader at the time, Dr. Ephraim Williams, a well-known Sacramento pastor.
And multiple people knew about it, but failed to take steps to protect her.
The suit claims Black began molesting Lee at their home in 1994 when she was 11 years old and continued through high school. Lee said the abuse escalated to rapes every other night between the ages of 13 and 15. According to the suit, Lee reported the abuse to her mother and confided in the church leader at the time, Dr. Ephraim Williams, who allegedly told her then, "We don't lie on good pastors." The lawsuit claims both knew about the abuse, but instead of trying to stop it, they attempted to cover it up.
And now she's following this lawsuit